Core TV News, expanding your view.
Welcome back in Cool Digest this Friday morning. Good to have you join us again. It's Fayose versus Fayemi as APC goes to court. Of course, we saw what transpired on June 21 governorship election with PDP winning in a landslide. At the polls, of course, Ayodele Fayose won in all the 16 local government councils of Ekiti State. Now, many are saying that this is the second time that Fayose is unseating an incumbent, and this time he's doing it against 3 governors in Ekiti. Of course, Fayemi alongside Adini Adebayo and Segun Oni, all of them together in the same camp. Ebulomo, the new twist to the story, just like we informed you earlier, is that APC now heads to court on 8 constitutional breaches. And the question was, is this something strange to what we saw Fayemi do, or what he said after he lost the election? But this is what Lai Mohammed is saying, and I'm going to quote him from the Nations. We're very proud of Fayemi for his conduct and comportment before, during, and after the election. And we hail him as a true Democrat in the true spirit of the APC's belief that election is never a do-or-die affair, and that Nigerians must always be free to elect those to govern them. After all, it is said that the just powers of government are derived from the consent of the governed. He, however, said the party had observed that the electoral process was substantially flawed, contrary to the general assumption of some Nigerians. So, Fayemi, the candidate, is saying, well, congratulations to Fayose, but the APC as a political party has 8 things against
Earlier,
the
you were
PDP.
saying that we must learn to dissociate individuals from party. But somehow I disagree, because you cannot possibly be playing cards different from that of a party who threw you up. Fine, we cannot tell at this point if indeed what happened
Just
was...
a minute, Ebeloma. We have a call coming from Young. Good morning, Young.
Hello?
Go ahead, please.
Hello? What's the point about
Oh my.
Problems with the network this morning. Just keep trying. The number is on the screen. We were saying earlier that you cannot possibly be a different person from the party that threw you up. And it's only time that we tell which is true of all these accusations and counter-accusations. If truly this is for public sympathy, what are the gains? What is it? Is it that there are other ambitions that in the future we say, okay, because this man, of course, if whether it was genuine or not, that has endeared this man to the hearts of many. I'm talking about Kayode Fayemi, because it is rare before you find someone do such a thing, whether genuinely or for the sake of sympathy.
But a critical assessment of the allegations that APC has against PDP shows a slight difference from what Fayemi said and what APC is saying. APC is not going to court because of the results of the election.
Exactly. Fayemi is not questioning that too.
We have a call, just a minute. We have a call. Adetoyeshe. Good morning. Welcome to Call Digest.
good morning?
You're welcome. Please go ahead with your contribution.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead with the contribution, please.
Thank you very much. Yeah, with all these list of the challenge they are making in the court, what the APC is challenging in the court, can they upturn the election of the APC? Because all of these things is telling us that the election is not paid. So, based on this, we all believe that the election is free and fair. But we don't matter if the challenge is challenging the election and surprise. It is a that day. Fayemi and the law.
It's all right. Thank you very much for calling. I'm sure that he was talking about whether the court can obtain the result of the election with all this allegation. Probably we're going to, I'm sure that in a short while we're going to have reactions from legal practitioners who are going to ascertain whether these breaches are, you know, valuable law-wise enough to obtain. But I think that beyond that, APC is saying that election is a process. It means that the credibility of an election must be measured by those things that transpired before, during and after. And I think that issues like these are very fundamental. Most importantly, the militarization of the state. We must find out the position of the law. If it is acceptable, you made mention of soldiers on the streets of Nigeria. Is it acceptable within the confines of the law to see men of the Nigerian military participate in such things?
And of course, even though APC is not directly questioning the results of the election where Fayose has over 200,000 and Fayemi has over 100,000. But then, like you said, if all these things before election, if it directly affects the number of voters, and you know, talking about INEC too, about the permanent voters card and some people whose names were not found on the register, there are so many questions we must ask. Could INEC have possibly removed those that they knew would be voting for the APC candidates from the register? Is it easily done that way? Then could you possibly, by looking at the faces of some people, determine the intent of their minds and say, okay, this one is likely to vote for this person, and so we're not giving permanent voters card? And you know, even before the elections, there was a report from Ekiti where people actually wanted their permanent voters cards, and they get there on a particular day, and INEC staff are having a meeting in the morning.
Is it not amazing about that even that particular issue is not mentioned out of all of the breaches that APC is taking to court? Nobody is talking about the disenfranchisement of prospective voters. About 300,000, close to 300,000 of them who did not have access, who registered to vote, but who did not have access to their permanent voter cards. That doesn't even seem to, you know, concern the opposition party in the suit.
I think what concerns more is the stopping of political bigwigs. We're talking about Amechi. And of course, how much of power does the federal government, because from what we heard of these people, the people who carried out this stopping and threats upon the lives of Amechi actually claimed that they were
orders from above,
which is the federal government. First, at times like that, does the federal government have the power to ground aircrafts? Do you have the power to shut down airports? And, you know, concerning not only Amechi, we heard about the governor of Edo State, Adams Oshomole, and his spokesman actually said that wouldn't be the first time. And if this truly continues like this, then I think we're infringing on human rights, except if the law says otherwise. So, of course, if these things are true, if really laws are broken, then it should be the court, whether we like it or not, that must settle these ones.
We have a call, Ebolomo. This is Haruna from Jos. Good morning, Haruna. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Welcome on Call Digest. Please go ahead with the contribution.
Thank you. I'm talking about the APC election. It is funny in Nigeria that the person who didn't contest the election has congratulated his opposition. Now, who is now legitimately right to go to court? Is it not the person who contested the election? So, Nigerian politics is a funny thing. If you can say the party will say that, I think we should give it a chance. Thank you very much.
I get to hear from you, Haruna. I'm sure he's talking about the disparity that exists now between the position of the candidate and as well as the the APC as a party, but I think we made that clear already that there seems to be a difference between what Kayode Fayemi, even if you take time to listen to his acceptance speech, he also made mention of the unlawful arrest and detention of certain APC leaders, and he said categorically that those issues were going to be documented, or maybe perhaps he didn't mention that whether he was going to court about those issues, but of course he showed his displeasure to certain things that happened prior to the election. But I think ultimately what I think Nigerians and indeed political watchers across the world is celebrating Kayode Fayemi for is the fact that he says, if this is the will of the people,
then let it be.
Let it be.
And another critical point is the fact that we've so easily forgotten the person who died during one of the mega rallies in Ekiti State. What is happening about that case? We're used to easily forgetting situations where lives are lost. I don't know why I keep placing emphasis on the fact that the human life is genuine more than any position. And you know, that goes a long way in telling that you cannot necessarily turn yourself into errand boys for politicians. And you should express caution when it is time for elections. Fine, go out and mass vote for your own candidates. Do not sell your votes. But at the same time, during this mega rally, because you have so many thugs, not really those who... I think we have another caller, and that is Jide from Alagbado. Jide, good morning.
Okay, thank you. I want to come to the program on here concerning the election.
Go ahead, Jide. Go ahead, we're with you.
So that Fayose won the elections and Fayemi lose is not the issue. The issue is how can government misuse a state all because of elections? That's number one. Then the second one is how can they decide all the arsenal of federal government at least to this to attack the freedom of certain number of people all because of elections? When they have the so-called PDP districts in Ekiti for that federal election, why do they not allow the opposition at least to come on for the city governor of that seat? So there are the people that are there and vote for people they like. That's not doing my interest. But this is that at least there will be the politics begins to be played according to the rule of the game. Who are the power of this? So everything is central. It's not even inside the condition that because of the election, certain number of people should be allowed to go to the state. Why the people from Abuja should be allowed to come in?
It's all right.
What are we saying in Nigeria? Are we getting it right? How could that possible? When we are not in the Banana Republic, in a civilized environment, for how long will we continue to be under the capacities, under the capacities of certain number of people in Nigeria? Because they believe that they have the power. So that is that. If I mean, Nigeria is not getting the rule right. They're not getting the food out. Let it get according to the rules of the military. And it is happening. It is a self-side development. For how long will Nigeria continue to be wallowing in that regard? It's not a development. It's not happening in our state.
It's all right. Thank you very much for your contribution, Jide. Good to hear from you. Sounded quite angry there.
Yes, and I think one thing in Nigeria is the average Nigerian does not know what the Constitution say about him or her, because I think it should be read out, especially the Electoral Act. How many hours before election are people not allowed to come into that state again? What time to what time are you supposed to come out to vote? And another question is the registration that precedes elections. we always are fine. We have most polling units here who actually kept to time, but still we had a situation where some did not start registration on time, and the stopping of individuals, the restriction, because if there must be restriction, you must tell why you're restricting them. Is it the law that is restricting them? Is it the constitution? Are they breaching the hours in which you cannot enter into a place again? But if not, if persons still have rights to enter into a particular place within a particular period of time, then you must
now why stop them?
Exactly. There must be enough explanations as to why you're stopping them than saying it is an order from above.
Beyond restriction, too, one must also, it is important. Shay Martin says something earlier that it is important that we discover the role of the judiciary in all of these. For instance, we hear the story told by the Rivers State governor, how he was harassed by men of the Nigerian military. He said categorically that these people were given order to shoot him. We don't know how true that is, but
yes,
if that is true, then it's not one story we should sweep under the carpet, because you know, we have this culture in Nigeria whereby, well, the person that won is the popular choice, then every other thing that happened should be swept under the carpet. No, because we're building, it's a process that we're building in Nigeria, and we're looking forward to a time in this nation where elections wouldn't carry so much fever, wouldn't carry so much might. But beyond that, look at what, this is an excerpt of what Fayemi Fayose said yesterday. He said, if the governor says I'm not going and his party says, well, otherwise, he said, I don't mind them going to court. And he went ahead to say the court will ask you, it's usually the incumbent that rigs. Why would somebody who is not an incumbent now rig and defeat you in your ward? Now, if you put that side by side with the pronouncement of Lagos State Governor Babatunde Fashola,
yeah,
when he said that what happened in Ekiti is not consistent
human behavior.
with human behavior, you know, given reasons like, how come before the election, about 2 weeks before the election, no social commentator could state categorically that Fayose was going to win? He said the worst that was heard was that it was going to be a close race. He said, okay, Fayemi was perceived to have done well, especially by most of us who are outside Ekiti. He said that, well, if Fayemi wasn't good, are you saying that his deputy was bad, his
the speaker,
secretary, the speaker, and all of that? Now, match all of this together, it boils down to the average perception of a Nigerian to elections. The fact that it's the incumbents that rigs, the fact that it is a party that wins. We must leave all of these insinuations and address issues. Address issues like, what can this person do for us as a people? What is the background
of that person,
of this particular person? That's also what the Lagos State governor said, that at the point in time, the governor-elect was taken to court by his own party. And now, is it consistent with human behavior? We must also go back to the law and find out what makes a man or a woman credible to run for an election. EFCC is saying Fayose still has a case to answer, and that he's not a governor yet, he's a governor-elect, and the case will go on. But you know what happens now after he becomes a governor? The
immunity clause comes to play. So all of these issues are very fundamental, not only to the Ekiti election, but then it is a process that will impact the quality of political system that will run in Nigeria. Exactly, and I feel that all of these should be taken up seriously, especially, I think, the hope of the ordinary man should be the judiciary. The hope of the people should be the judiciary. I think at this point I want to make a wake-up call to the judiciary, because I, for one, do not support the fact that does not support that our judiciary is doing as well as it ought to do. They might have limitations, fine, especially the influence.
Just a minute, Evan. We have a call from Rotimi is calling us back. Hello, Rotimi.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Welcome to Call Digest.
My name is Rotimi. I'm calling from Lagos.
Please go ahead with the contribution.
Yes, like I yesterday, I said the election in the city was free, but it wasn't fair. You can see the amount of the election now. You can see everybody coming to say the election was not fair. Because if the election was to be fair, you will allow both sides to participate actively. You won't talk from some people from the other side of coming to why people from the PDP are going around the street and arresting people all about in the state. We are yet to see what is going to fall out from it because Fayemi is an enlightened person. That's why he allowed it. When he said it, I said, this may not come from the party. Let me tell you one thing. Election is not rigged at the polling station. Election is rigged at the collation center. At the collation center, that is why election is rigged. That is why they maximize the act of rigging. And by using the military to chase people or to chase supporters or to chase the agents of other parties away is an act of manipulation. It's an act of manipulation. I'm not a party member. I'm not a party person. I don't belong to any party. But I just believe everything you come to EPC must come with clean hand. Everything must be clean. Let us see what is there. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day.
Good to hear
Thank
from
you so much, Rotimi.
Thank you, Rotimi. Just in addition to what he said, of course, the APC also queried what it described as the meddlesomeness of the State Defense Minister Musiliu Abanikoro and his police affairs counterpart Jalili Adesina in the poll. You recall that these people were accused of going into Ekiti while some other APC chieftains were not allowed inside. And I think that that's exactly what Rotimi was saying, talking about a level playing ground for all the parties involved. I believe that that perception that the security agencies in Nigeria are partisan is one perception that federal government and indeed leadership must work on. It might be true, it might be otherwise, but then the idea that we have a lot of political interplay between security agencies and political leaders, it's quite challenging.
And I think this did not just start. We had issues in Rivers State where there was a tussle between the governor and
the Commissioner of Police. Commissioner
of Police. The question is, to what extent do the security agencies have? What are their limitations? Where should they stop? Because these are the many questions. Because if you have a problem with the governor of a state in which you are serving as the commissioner, I think the commissioner is always subordinate to the governor. Matter of fact, is the chief of
the governor is supposed to be the chief security officer of that state.
So what are the limitations of security agencies?
As
that
should be
asked. And in this situation of Ekiti, what right do these people have to stop? So it doesn't necessarily have to be the governor. And again, we know that this issue of threats over life, it's not the first time it's happening. Matter of fact, we're not saying any is true, but we can only speak on the things we've heard people say. If we took the issue of the Kano State governor who said the president alleged that the president was after his life, Amechi also said now that it's not the first time. The Ekiti election where he was stopped and threatened to be shot at is not the first time. He actually mentioned a time where he was at the airport and an armored truck came into, and you see, all of these things are too dirty to be heard about the situation of this nation, given the sensitive situation in the country. It is a time where Nigerians are not supposed to have divergent voices and views, especially between our leaders, among our leaders.
We have a caller from Abuja, Abdul. Good to hear from you. How are you today, Abdul? Hello, Abdul.
Morning.
Morning. How are you today?
How are you guys doing there in the studio?
We are terrific. Please go ahead with the contribution.
How are you? How are you guys doing? As I'm telling you guys are doing a very good job.
Thank you.
Yeah, regards to Fayemi Vs issue, and then APC heading for court. Hello?
Go ahead, we're with you.
Welcome development. I think it's good for people to know that you don't do things and don't work with your faith. Because that's why the court is there. You can feel we now understand that something fishy really happened there. Because Fayemi is the person. Fayemi, from the day he became governor of APC, so the 21st Saturday when the election was held, I think I respect them a lot. And I have a lot of friends from the APC state that are based in the Abuja here. And in most cases, I just see Fayemi on the screen, and the good job is very for the good people. And Fayemi have received a lot of recommendations from different, places. So my greatest surprise is how a person like Fayemi lost in his own work. If Fayemi is that bad, can the king come to you with bad of his work? And the man lost in his work. And secondly, the deputy, if Fayemi is that bad for I think the deputy governor should have a little, respect for his people. The speaker is there as an APC man. The justice is there. And to my greatest surprise, and we have two former governors. Now the guy, the same time will fail. So my major concern is that I think something is very fundamentally wrong somewhere. And the INEC, let me say, APC, election process is fundamental. You see, the process of election is very, very wrong. There is a lot of conspiracy. Because when you see security, a personal affection, a representative shots of the APC, like the APC, a family campaign director, I think they all remember what they call them. The director of family campaign. Well, I said, that is the long time and to put it for the election, some APC government will time from passing the keys. And the election says 20 hours before the election, that is when people will put it off. I have almost 48 hours to the election. I think presented some way with it. I think what is legal is illegal. And for me, I want the agency to go to court and challenge that. I think the governor of Lagos made a good intellectual, analysis to the election. That people should look at before that chapter 11, I think there will be information that if people come out to protest, the over 5,000 security that were there, well armed, we kill a lot of people with it. Didn't the protest and so we've seen it in this position. When the ANC guys went for rally and the man was shot by the police, a moto at that, what called it, a moto confronted the governor and was telling him that he is here to do his work. It is very, very bad. So my own appeal here is for the INEC to please improve the different scenarios pushing because the next place we're going to look at. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your contribution, Abdul, from the Federal Capital Territory. Good to hear from you. Of course, Abdul as well is also being skeptical about happenings in Ekiti and asking questions how the incumbent governor could have lost in his ward, as well as how he lost so overwhelmingly, even when he had the support of two former governors of the state. Those are questions that, because politics is beyond numbers and figures. At times, situation on ground, defiles all the arithmetics and all the statistics that we have. But of course, these are questions that must be answered. It made a very critical statement there, referring to a man that was allegedly shot by a mobile policeman. We saw that on TV. We saw the governor saying that, saying that the police shot someone. And I think that all those issues, because you recall that when the governor-elect spoke, he said that he is calling on security agencies to release all the people that have been arrested. And he as well said that people who have lost property or so, that they will be compensated. I don't think they should just be released that way. If you were arrested,
for a reason.
there must be a reason why you were arrested.
You can't just be picked and released just like that.
Our politicians should be more accountable to the law. I mean, you can't arrest someone and then just release him without giving an account of what happened. If he was caught with ballot papers, if he was caught sharing money, bring such individual to book. I think that's a big challenge to our electoral process. Just a minute, Ebon.
Yes.
That is a big challenge to our electoral process in Nigeria. The reason being that most of the electoral offenders in the country have not been prosecuted. I mean, INEC in Anambra told us about someone who compromised the standards and the ethics of election, who compromised, and that was all we had. We've heard of issues of violence here and there, pockets of violence. We've heard the issues of rigging. The election that brought Fayemi to power was rigged. And then all that happened was that the person that rigged it was only told to leave for the newcomer to take his place. Until we can bring corporates, electoral offenders to book, then we're far away from it in Nigeria.
Exactly, you're right.
We have a call from Philip. Philip is calling from Port Harcourt. How are you today, Philip? Hello, Philip.
Hello.
Please go ahead with the contribution.
Hello. Good morning. Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning.
The contribution is this. The elders of Nigeria should look into what is happening. The youth that and the youth are learning from India. If they think that all they are doing is only for themselves, it's not only for themselves. Because youth are looking at them to see their government and what their government is what they do like. That's because I'm actually got from TV. Not bring such doctors and users alike to come forward. Because the government that is government and is the citizen of the country. You know, you shouldn't be treated like that. Because what they are doing, the youth are seeing them, and they should treat the elderly person of the country. You know? Because the governor of the state now think that he is the right one because the other one has lost his election. But he shouldn't know the outcome. What will be nice is ruling after the enter to the chief and after the other one happens. This is the same thing he will still be in France. Because they have this before, they have to have him again. Just like what happened to Orchid of Kano in other states. You know, when I did a kind of the governor of other states, he did him as their uncle and made him an action. But when I did a kind of denied, you know, denied of dignity, and the government see what the kind of as an idiot, as the hopeless, as the youth, what are the things they want to know? What are the things they want to think that the important people and good governor in other. But what happened to the past government of Agasti? This is what will happen to Ekiti State.
Thank you very much, Philip.
Good to hear
from
from
Port
you,
Harcourt.
Philip.
Thank you. And we were talking about the
Prosecution of electoral offenders.
And it's, I think the words of our leaders should be taken up, not just should not be passed as mere words and literally. Like what you said, who has the power to release these people? And if we say because you're assuming positions, okay, I can pardon you, you can go, is that all that there is to it? We're not saying that means if it's as easy as that, probably these people never really did anything serious in the first place, and that would be confirming what the APC is agitating for. If these people were picked up, in order not to provide fair playing ground between the major contenders in the state, then there is a problem somewhere. We must begin to bring our leaders to book for every word they say. And you know, another question is, fine, if we say that this person has done well as the incumbent governor, why we're questioning so many things that led to the actual voting that day, we must begin to look at the personality. What is it the majority of the people in Ekiti are saying? You heard the report on Fayose when he was getting his certificate of return, and he was saying, I'm going to eat boli with you people, I'm going to take agbojedi. And some people have said he's a very grassroots man. Now the question is it that people now prefer someone who relates with them more? Is it the relationship between the individual involved and the
ideology of governance?
Or the ideology of governance?
We have a call from Ogun Shomodu. How are you today? Hello, good morning. Are you there?
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning. Welcome to Call Digest.
Thank you. I in the state that the election was going on. I looked because I had a program in it. There was general voter towards APC. People voted massively for PDP. So I now wonder what's their problem. I try to interact some of individuals of Sabi at the Kondo. You see, the way they describe the ruling party, if I was so bad, they call them capital, and they are marginalized government and governance. You know, government is all about starting the people, but they are succeeded in commercializing everything. So they stand up and they need a change. So, we can always learn things. So thank you very much.
Good to hear from you, brother. Thank you for calling. Let's quickly intimate you with this breaking news. President Goodluck Jonathan is about now visiting survivors of Wednesday's bombing of a shopping mall in Abuja. This was after he rushed back to Nigeria from Equatorial Guinea, where he was to attend an African Union summit. Now, President Jonathan had traveled just before the bombers hit the popular Emma Plaza, killing at least 22 people. He had earlier planned to return on Friday, and we'll keep you up to date. That was today, rather, and we'll keep you up to date with what transpired as it unfolds. The good news, Ebolomo, as regards security and all of that, is that there's a recommendation that has just been accepted at the floor of the ongoing national confab, and it's this idea of a state police that states, if a governor is called the chief executive officer of a state, it should be in charge of the police. But the challenge also will be a question of the accusation that we have now to the federal government of using security agencies as
Wouldn't
political
that happen on the state level too, where the
wouldn't
government
that
uses that
itself
against its opposition and uses the police to intimidate people? Normally we have people, whether political parties or individuals, who'd always criticize the government. And considering the clampdown on the media, of course, recently we heard about the military clampdown on media, where prints were destroyed and all of that. As is becoming a nation where you don't really have the freedom of speech as it is embedded in our constitution, how free is a person to actually criticize the government of the day? Of course, we advise objectivity. You must be civil about the way you talk to the power that be, the power at the center. But at the same time, state policing, until I think this whole thing has to do with maturity, putting the people first instead of you, because if we say state police is the solution to all these security issues that we have, this intimidation and harassment from the military, then won't the state government do the same thing against those who are criticizing, trying to place checks and balances and the opposition?
Some have said that Nigeria has the kind of leadership that it deserves, that our leaders are not foreigners answering foreign names.
Well,
they are
some
just
people might not agree with you on that.
A mirror and a product of the quality of reasoning and the quality of people in Nigeria. Because
if we say these leaders are people from among us, some people will say the only reason and way we can say that is true is if our elections are totally free, fair, and credible. That means we have put in place the person we want. But if we keep saying that elections have these flaws, that means the people in power might not necessarily be what the people or who the people want in power. And so the person might not be the true reflection of what the people of the state or country...
Have you considered how Nigerians react to leadership and compare with how political leadership or political leaders in Nigeria banter? We saw the conversation between the Kano State Governor and Mr. President. Just recently, you had the Ekiti State Governor-elect saying something about the Osun State Governor, and you look at the banter. It's almost the same thing Nigerian people are saying about their leadership. The forthcoming election will be in Osun, and then ultimately we're going to have another one in 2015. There's already a war of words, and we can only hope the leadership will be more responsible. Leadership will wake up and do what is right, and just like how the Fayemi has shown in Ekiti, which we believe it will reflect in his actions, political leadership must prioritize the welfare and the security of their people, and that, I'm persuaded, will reflect in their utterances subsequently.
And that will be a show today on Core Digest. Of course, it continues tomorrow, being Saturday. It's been a wonderful time with you, and we do appreciate your participation. For those who tried calling and did not get through, we apologize for that. Tomorrow is another day. Do join us. Thank you for being there. On behalf of Nifemi Okotoyi, I am Ebulomo Adekunle. Have a pleasant day.
Nigerians continue to travel
the city of Lagos waits at the dock as all routes
to you on
Be the first to know.
Core TV News
From the north, south, east, west, and around Africa, we break the news.
One Nigeria.
Now you can catch all the actions live as the news breaks. We are Core TV News.
Welcome to Core TV.
A 24-hour news station.